people start to come in. Yep. Okay, I think we can probably start in about another 1.5 minutes on that.
Mm. So Darius, where are you located?
I'm in Singapore.
Oh, okay. You're in Singapore.
Yeah, it's I think not as hot as Dubai, but a
Yeah.
lot more humid, and you sweat just coming out of the shower, so not enviable either.
Actually, nowadays,
Yeah, but
the
good.
most part of the world, it is like that only. When it is on a summer side, even I think we have seen that during, like summer season in Germany and, places like that. Those who don't have AC and stuff like that, they used to have 40 plus, degree heat one time. So it's
Indeed.
difficult. Actually.
So next month I'm running to China, going towards Heilongjiang, which is the northern part of China. It's a nice, cool 18 degrees Celsius there. So
Wow.
yes, I need to run away from the heat here.
Yeah,
Okay, guys. Sorry to interrupt you guys. It's coming to 8 o'clock. So as we let more people in between, especially Singaporeans, we are habitually late. So in between there may be people who coming in and everything. So anyway, once we start, we just just go ahead with whatever discussions, and I will
Guys, someone
probably
is asking on the chat, whether they'll be given a e-certificate after the end of the session.
yeah, great. Unfortunately, we don't. But we are planning to come up with a whole series of it, a whole series of the talks. That one is more for private one, but we will sort it out sooner or later. Okay, so maybe what we can do is that since it's on exactly 8 p.m., let's start because from experience, if we start late, we will probably end much later. Okay, so as for those who just joined us, welcome. Especially today is Friday night. For some of us, Friday night. Some of you guys are probably still very much early in the morning, like Nancy. Exactly now it's about what? 12. Is it 12? 13 hours different in New York?
12 hours difference. So
Okay,
it's morning.
great. Thank you for waking up so early to have this panel discussion. Okay, so first and foremost, thank you everyone for taking time to join us. And also another thing is that we just want to quickly do a very short intro. I think today we probably will know why are we all here. I think first and foremost is to invite everyone to come in to listen to short panel discussions. The topic today is basically to become an expert on pricing. Okay, on pricing. I think this is something that is always very difficult, especially for companies or maybe founders who just started their business, because we are not talking about just pricing. The pricing is not just about selling. Sometimes we are talking about the pricing as you are the one who's probably going to be the one to buy the service. You're probably going to be the one to mark up the service. Okay, pricing, because you may not be selling to the end customers. You may be selling to your partners, where partners need to do the markup, send it to the channels and stuff like that. And then things can get even more complicated, okay, if you are selling overseas. I think this is why today hopefully we can answer some of these questions that everybody want to ask. Like for example, if someone is to buy from US, okay, and send it over to Dubai, and somehow for whatever reason he has to do the transshipment over Singapore. So how do you calculate that? That kind of stuff. Is this something that we have to understand, or when we're talking about tax? I think Darius is laughing. Okay, so it can be quite complicated.
Actually, nowadays, nowadays actually there are many portals do the service. Like buying in US and storing it somewhere, and like instead of bringing small pieces, they bring it as one lot into the
Correct.
country. That actually
Pastor, this is where you will come in. Okay, this is where you will come in. You are the expert in this. So other than sending nuclear weapons, I think Pastor actually knows quite a lot of experience about all the shipment stuff. This guy is the guy to talk to on the logistics. Okay, so since we just started, so let me just do a very high level. For those who just joined, you didn't miss much. We were just kickstarting the whole entire thing. If possible, I could like the speakers here to do a very short introduction of themselves. As we all believe, ladies first. So among the three of you, I'm not quite sure which one is the lady. But maybe Nancy, you want to start first?
I'm not sure if I'm a lady, but that's another question. But
Yeah,
anyway,
you're definitely a girl to me.
so my name is Nancy Ahola. I'm actually an entrepreneur. I ran my own company, The Instruments, which was based out of Finland, of all places, specializing telecommunications hardware and software. I've now gone into consulting. I work as a deal flow scout with venture capital, private equity, family offices, and corporate venture capital. I specialize in getting companies into multiple markets. And so, for instance, I am now coming up to potentially advise a British company to go into the Japanese market in regards to semiconductors. I'm actually now also talking to the head of AI from Microsoft as some people are putting together a company based on the hardware and software for artificial intelligence, and then multiple companies on SaaS platforms, both on hardware and software side. But I'm specialist basically for the American market, European market, and parts of Asia, not Singapore or Southeast Asia, but more so Korea and Japan. And I'm more than happy to talk on this seminar, and always happy to do for Patty.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Okay, so yeah, the rest of the gentlemen here, go ahead and do an introduction.
Okay, maybe I go first, Prasad. So I'm Darius. I am the founder and business consultant for Product Launch Guru. So my specialization is in go-to-market strategy and planning, as well as business coaching. I run the gauntlet between B2B, B2C, B2B to B2C in terms of hardware, fintech, as well as data center infrastructure. So I've got quite a bit of experience dealing with both the software, hardware, as well as the service side of business. Currently, I'm mostly consulting. I'm a consultant, helping companies, certain investment firms, to understand a bit more about the fintech market. So it's a lot of things in the operations side, which I was able to help them in developing and understanding what it means to enter the fintech arena in Southeast Asia. Similarly, for hardware and software, I am in the process of helping some companies bringing their products into the market. And that is currently what I am involved in. Thank you.
Prasad, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'm Prasad Gopinath. I'm actually from Dubai. I've been here for the last 20 plus years, 25 years around. Originally from India, then I've been into the logistic field for the last 19 years and I used to be an employee and then, become an entrepreneur, started a logistic company and few other startups as well into technology and into food and beverages and technical service company and a trading company. These are all startups mainly on the logistics side, and I help people to find out their the market for their product and procuring products from different part of the world, because I'm connected to so many countries, people handling different products and stuff like that. And I'm also advisor for a few of the companies in the Middle East, and I also help companies especially from Southeast Asia, Far East, and all those who wanted to expand their business and market their product into this part of the world, into the Middle East, into the GCC, etc. So I help them to setting up their company and stuff like that. So this is the main highlights of of my profile. Thank you.
So basically, all three speakers are very talented. Okay, very well versed in the field that you're in. Okay, so now, um, let me just kick off. Okay, so for those who just joined, the folks here just did the introduction of themselves. We got it recorded. You can always view it if you have missed out the first few minutes. So now let's kick off. Since today's panel discussions is very much about pricing, how to be an expert in terms of the pricing. I think one of the biggest challenges, okay, we start off with domestic first before we go overseas. I think one of the few questions that always a lot of people will always ask, which I also want to throw it over to the speakers here. Let's say, for example, let's just kick off with say Darius. Okay, so let's say Darius, Yeah, no, and you mentioned about you're doing, products, basically you're consultants for the products, go-to-market strategies and stuff like that. So here's the thing that I'm always not quite sure. For products that are never into the market yet, okay, that means we are talking about, products that are not in the market. That means they have not even entered into the particular market. So maybe for the instance in Singapore, maybe some products is already selling very well, but it's unknown. And so for yourself, how will you as a consultant, how will you actually, adjust the selling price to ensure that the target markets can actually purchase them?
That's a very good question. I think most of the time we'll start with the competitive analysis. We see what's in the market already and look at what they're pricing the products. But of course, in most cases, if we talk about startups or new products, there is no equivalent in the market. But the value proposition is always going to be there. I mean, if you're talking about, let's say AI is the next big thing in the market right now. Although there were no AI platforms back then, but what is the use case? Is it to use for like Grammarly, check grammar or check spelling or what's not? We use that as the benchmark. So we use, let's say, Grammarly or one of the spell check services as a benchmark to determine how much more can charge above, given that we have new capabilities in like AI and so on and so forth. Similarly with products, if you have a product which is innovative in the market and no one has it before, look at what is the problem you're solving for the customer and how much they're paying for it currently to address that problem. That forms my benchmark or my baseline for pricing in the market. And then from then on, we run and see a couple of tests to see whether the market acceptance of such pricing works or not.
Okay, that's interesting. So let's say, for example, according to what you just shared, Darius, okay, I mean, you're going to set, you talk about benchmarks and all this. So let's say if I were to bring whatever that you just shared for someone who is going to enter from overseas into, say, the Singapore market. Okay, so but if I were to throw this question back to Nancy, so let's say, Nancy, some companies, when they want to enter into a particular market, okay, for example, like now you're residing in New York itself. So, US is basically the market that we know that a lot of our startups always want to enter and some of that. So let's say assuming startups already have a product and is proven in their own native country, in their own native market, but now they want to enter in. So let's say from your perspective, okay, if they have a certain, what kind of a business goals, okay, should they actually try to achieve, okay, into a market that has not even heard about them? Like for example, Darius was talking about, someone come in, look for him for help, he will give all these advices. But if someone, some companies, they wanted to enter on their own, that means they are not fortunate enough to look for people like Darius, because Darius is probably only doing Southeast Asia. So for someone who wants to enter into US market, a lot of us always understand US market itself is very diversified. So question here to you is that if you're talking about business goal, when they enter into a particular market, what kind of things should they actually prepare themselves in order to achieve what they are trying to do in the pricing strategy?
Right. So the things that they really need to take a look at is like Darius talked about value prop, but the biggest thing is customers. Who is your customer base? Like, how are you selling into it? So depending upon the customer base, whether it is B2B, B2C, and even into B2B, there's like huge amounts of subsections into it. Are you selling into big companies, enterprise? Are you selling into government? Are you selling into what we call SMBs, small, medium businesses? Those types of things. So you really need to take a look at who you're selling into, because that also determines your price point. When you have a large enterprise, you have something that's considered a high value product. If you have a governmental product as well, you can adjust your pricing. But the question is that where's the breaking point? Where is it considered too high? And if you price it too low, people don't really take this in consideration. That's where your value proposition for your pricing is taken into consideration. So when you're entering into a new market, you really have to think about who your customers are going to be, who do you want to sell into. Also, another thing too is who are your competitors? Like, they don't have to necessarily be direct competitors, but at least people who are selling something similar to your product. So that is going to be really, really important in your pricing strategy, because especially here in the US, the perception is if you set the price too low, people begin to suspect, hey, is this product not good? So why are you selling it too low? If you sell it too high, then your customers are going, well, we don't want to buy it because your competitor is selling it for cheaper. But another thing too is that you also need to show the value of the product. Here in the US, people are willing to pay money, but the question is that what are they getting for what they're buying, what they're paying for? So you might find something like, so for instance, like a Salesforce or any kind of enterprise software where it's highly expensive, but people are like, you know what, it does it better, even though we don't like all the functionality, but it provides us the core of what we really need. So those are the things to take into consideration, especially going into a market like the US or in reality, any market.
Okay, thank you very much, Nancy. That's very insightful. So let's say, assuming to add on to what Darius said, entering to a small market like Singapore, or maybe so someone who wants to sell to a market like in US. So there's always a lot of preparations to be done. So let's say, for example, Pasar, in the line of work that you're doing, you're handling a lot of logistics and all this. So let's just assume we are talking about physical products. So, one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people tend to make is that when they sell, they just take it as, I'm going to sell at $1 with markup, and then that's it. But a lot of people don't quite understand that the logistic itself can actually set you back a lot if you don't add into the calculations. So let's just assuming someone in US, wants to sell something to Dubai. What kind of advice will you give to them in terms of pricing?
See, first of all, actually, need to see that like what type of product it is. Okay, the product originated from USA, and if it is like I mean a food product or a technology product, all like based on those sector, the pricing also like I mean like what you say like matters actually. Especially on a food stuff, like always it is on a very little premium, stuff based on the ingredients and stuff like that. And in terms of the logistic, what happens is like you're identifying the best like way of logistics, to bring the products from that country to the to especially if it is to Dubai, for example, to UAE, to identifying the best option to bring that product. It can be by air or it can be by sea. It depends, because if it is by sea, it takes around 40-45 days. So if it is a foodstuff product, then definitely you may have to bring it by. If it is a frozen products, you may have to bring it by air and all. You'll not have a long shelf time and all. So you need to cop up based on that. So definitely the logistic price will go up. So based on that, the pricing matters. So what happens is if the product is a premium product, like very organic product, for example, in terms of food stuff, for example, in such products always have even if the price is high, there are customers actually, really wanted to buy that, understanding the value of the product. So what happens is one thing is the main aspect which decide the pricing. Definitely the value cost has to be considered. And the logistic is definitely the part of the value of the cost, because you need to always find out the landing cost of a product into the country. And based on that, you like maybe if it is a $50 product in US, maybe in Dubai, maybe it is a $70 product, including its logistic cost. So based on that, it goes to the shelf, and you decide based on that. And then understanding the market situation, and understanding the competitors, how they are selling in the market. And not only that, like understanding what, as Darius mentioned, what value addition it is, the product actually gives to the customer. And based on that, definitely you can place the pricing. It is not that always your product has to be cheapest, but you can actually value, because some cases, some products, when you raise the price, only that actually sell. Especially you have seen like the luxury products, there is no comparison with the production cost. It's always the brand value. So that also matters, like there are, so all depends on like what type of product it is, and from where it is coming, and what value addition it goes to the end user, all based on that.
Okay, thank you. That's good. Yeah, Darius?
Yeah, so can I add on a little bit on this
Yeah,
logistics?
please on. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, so another factor which I always tell my clients to look out for is reverse logistics. I mean, these days customers are very, very picky about refund policies and returns. So when we talk about that, we must consider, besides the cost of bringing the product to the customer, what is our cost of bringing the product back from the customer if they want to refund or return the product. So how we normally go about doing this is to see what is the mean number of returns for a certain market segment. Say maybe it's 2%, 3%. What's the cost of it? And then we need to add that cost into the overall product price. Otherwise, you may encounter a situation whereby it costs you more to bring a product into the market than what margins can make out of it.
Right.
That's interesting. Okay, so now questions to everyone on the floor here. I mean, for the speakers. So there's always this very interesting question. It's like, okay, I just started my company. Let's say I just started my company. I just started my business, and what I'm offering is not new. That means, for example, I'm offering accounting services. I'm offering digital marketing services, and honestly, there's my product differentiations, my offer doesn't deviate too much from what is already in the market. So now, if I would throw you these challenges, this challenge, how will you help someone like me to differentiate myself? Is it just on pricing? And if it's on pricing, should I sell cheaper to go into the market to get case study? Or should I actually price myself according to what the market needs? Or should I actually price myself a more premium so that I will straight away go down and then I automatically filter those who are willing to pay versus those who just want to get a good deal? It's open to the floor. I mean, three speakers, please go ahead.
Okay, so maybe I start first. So when we talk about pricing, I always advise them never ever go cheap, because once you go cheap, you cannot go up again. It's very difficult to convince your customers that you're worth more than what you initially charge. What we normally do is that we look at the benchmark pricing of what's the competitors are offering. We go for that benchmark, at least for the present sense. And when we talk to customers, we offer a discount. Of course, it be case by case basis. So to the customer, they're still getting a good deal out of it. We still get a business, we still get some case studies. But in the public eye, in the big space, they don't see us as being cheap. And that's very important in terms of our brand awareness. That being said, if we are offering a commoditized service, the most important factor is word of mouth. We need to get our word of mouth out there, because everything else doesn't matter if you don't have a good reviews and good feedback from the customers you serve.
Yeah, I would add to what Darius says, which is think about the key customers are the ones that you really, really want, okay? And this is where you begin to, as a business owner, as a startup, to kind of tap into your network to find out who your customers are, because that's going to be really important. The discounts, I would say, only try to think about the value of each customer that becomes a case study, right? Because Darius was talking about case studies. So talk about and think about those names that you really want to have as a part of your portfolio that you can show to new customers that says, we've done business with X, Y, Z, which is really, I think, important as you establish your business. And you give yourself enough kind of leeway to do them as proof of concept projects at that point. Because then what you can do is ask that customer, as the cost of doing that a development for them, build into it that, hey, you know what? We can be able to use this as a case study. Are you okay with us like using this as part of our PR, as part of our marketing? So you take that into consideration as your new company with a non-differentiated product that you're taking out to market.
Prasad, what do you think? Do you agree with both of them?
Yeah, I agree to that. And then what especially just wanted to highlight the point what Darius have told. Keeping a benchmark on a pricing is always good, because instead of understanding the competition or maybe understanding the market situation, instead of changing the prices now and then, it is always better actually applying a sort of percentage of discount, for a certain period, so that what happens is that will help the customer to take a decision immediately to to buy a product or service. Like you apply 25% discount or 50% discount, then so your benchmark of the price remains the same, but you apply this type of discounts apart from that, and so the end user will have a better price. And especially when you're selling a digital product, like I feel that okay, your cost your product cost actually, you wanted to have more number of subscribers or maybe a user in that matter, so that maybe at the start you may sell at even at a low price as well, but the more number of subscribers or members you add into that, definitely you will cover your cost and stuff like that. So this type of product actually always help you on a long run, to catch to get the customer, and to make to add more value to the customers requirements.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. So let's say for example, let's say now I heard what the three of you shared with me, and I just refuse to listen to any of this advice, and I just feel that hey, come on, it's a waste of time. Let me just try out on my own. I mean, I'm just assuming, because startup founders, it's not everybody will take advice, especially from people who have been there, done that. So let's say I'm just one of those more rebellious one. I say, come on, these three, what do they know? Okay, so I decided to launch my own product. I decided to sell it at a very low price, thinking that customers will come to me because of my low price. And then later on, I realized damn, it's actually not about the price. Okay, I mean, things happen, right? It's not about the price. I make some mistakes and customers are just not coming back to me. Or maybe some customers who came to me, who use me, my service, and they demand more things. And then I like what Derek said, I cannot increase my price. Okay. Or maybe as what Nancy said, you probably want to have a bit of a differentiation. Or maybe as what Pasat said, okay, it's not about just a pricing, you gotta add value. So now I make all these mistakes. Okay, it's too deep for me. What should I do?
That's a very interesting question, Paddy. And I think we encounter it more often than not that they don't listen. They just go for the lowest cost strategy. They call it strategy. I just call it why you need a sales team in the first place if you're going to go for lowest cost. Okay, in such a situation, when they dug the hole themselves, I mean, obviously we don't wish them that this happen, but it happens more often than not. They will have to, in a way, separate the product lines. So what have they been selling previously, the commoditized service, they have no chance of increasing the price without seriously value adding to that product line. So my advice would be this: keep that product line at that price as long as it's sustainable, which means that you're not losing money in that product line and it gives you a foot in the door to certain bigger business. Keep it that way, leave it as it is. But at the same time, relook at your product portfolio strategy and the pricing strategy in the whole portfolio. See where you can put higher margin services add on to it to make it worth their while. It could be something as simple as premium support services. Some B2B like it when you have a dedicated support officer for their particular corporation. Or in some cases, you can give them such that the first 50 support calls are free, but subsequent support calls are chargeable. You have to find a way to increase the margin somehow without giving them the impression that you're increasing the price for them. But look at their use case, look at how they're using your product, see which areas you can add in a bit more value to increase the overall price of the customer, overall lifetime value of the customer, without giving them the impression you're giving them a worse deal in the long run.
Okay, that's interesting. Nancy, Asad, anything to add?
Yeah, I will add something. Like if it is, for example, like products like softwares and all, like when you see that, you can even, make keep your basic price as low, and based on the features, maybe you can add like the features what all added, based on that you can add the prices based on that. Each feature maybe you can tell that okay, this is the price for that. So that what happens is you will see that yeah, those customer who don't use that particular feature actually definitely will have a lower price, and those who wanted to have that extra services or extra features into that, they add a premium. They are ready to pay some premium on that. So that also one way of doing it. I mean, in the market. And then another thing, if the product is a very high price product, there are actually companies, nowadays, they actually tie up with some, finance, portals, which gives four time, like, 4 installments. You can make payment in 4 installments, this type of, or 3 installments. So this type of options also I've seen in the market, nowadays. So that what happens is that also help for customer to buy it, instead of seeing the price, because at that time, because that is not going to affect their business, and they are going to, they are going to get a assistance from this, instead of paying the full amount of the product, but still they can use the service of that product and see that how it actually improves or helps their business.
Yeah. I have a slightly different thought, but kind of adding a little bit to what Dar's talking about, which is in your product portfolio, begin to add some higher value products, and the ones that they're using that the pricing is too low, and you've got like a small number of users, begin to kind of sunset that product, right? So essentially thinking about that you're going to not have that product anymore, or you're going to use that as like a baseline if it's a software product, kind of reuse part of it, but then create a different product that is essentially adding more features, etc. But then announce to your customers, we're sunsetting this product, okay? You've got users and a user base, whatever. So what happens is that they go, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose this stuff, and then sell them at the higher products and saying, look, we're going to not have this anymore. We're not going to be able to service this anymore, but we have this product that it's really similar and it has these added features, and then begin to kind of upsell them, maybe potentially on that same product or something completely different that has different functionality. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, based on the version of the product.
Yeah, and another interesting one in the market right now is that they change a product from capital expenditure into operational expenditure. So they make it a subscription service instead. They'll start, instead of sending you the product outright, they say, okay, you rent it from me, or lease it from me. I will do all the maintenance for you and stuff like this. And the consumables, of course, you have to purchase it. But what they do is they transform the entire paradigm of you're buying a product from me to buying a service from me. And that's one way they can consider how they can get out of that trap they've dug themselves in.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. It's interesting. Okay, so now let me just throw you another interesting question. So example, okay, Pasha talk about digital products. So let's say I'm a software house. Okay, I develop a software, and somehow my software is I'm actually selling it. So for example, I'm selling it in Southeast Asia. And due to the demands and due to the currency exchange and stuff like that, I'll probably be selling it. Example, I'm selling it at $1. Okay, and it cut across all the Southeast Asia, from Indonesia to Singapore to Philippines and everything. I'm selling at $1. But even that, your
voice.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now it's okay. In between, and I get broken actually.
Oh, okay, yeah. So let's say for example, I'm selling at $1, but I know very well that even if I sell $1, okay, it can't be a homogeneous price, because there may be some folks who is in some other countries, because of the currency exchange, it becomes very expensive and it becomes probably very cheap. So question, should I actually keep a single price, because we are now talking about digital products, single price, okay, among the market that I enter, or should I actually localize it? And if I were to localize it, how do I actually prevent someone from buying it at a lower price, but where they are actually in a market where they can afford to pay? Okay, let me add a few more things. Okay, Singaporeans are well known, okay, to go overseas, the surrounding countries, and the only thing that we always talk about is cheap. Okay, so okay, so now if we were to do something like this, how can I continue to sell $1 in Singapore market, and then I sell it in some other markets where $1 is actually very expensive? Should I localize it? And if I localize it, how do I prevent from cannibalizations between these markets? Open to the floor.
Are we talking about software or hardware products here? So you say software,
digital product, yeah, digital product that can cut across the markets.
Okay, I think the easiest non-technological way of doing it is by language differentiation. You can do a localized language for different markets. That in itself is a way of creating a barrier to entry for gray market players. Of course, you can do IP addresses and stuff like this. That's also possible. But I think end of it all depends entirely on what the use case of that product or service talking about. Because for most consumers, especially for B2B, back-end support is very important. I can buy from, let's say, a Singaporean can buy from Indonesia or Malaysia, but back-end support is not local and encounter difficulties, I will not be happy. I think I'll pay a little bit more just to make sure I get the support at the right time and reduce the opportunity cost of me losing business if I don't have the support at a point in time. Yeah, so that's one of the things that came up from my mind, pop up from my mind.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like there are actually softwares, especially from Microsoft and all, they have, like do a sort of, checking, as he said, like IP address based on that. Like for example, I bought the product from India, for example, which is comparatively cheap, and if I'm using it in UAE, because in the local market over here it is high price. So what happens? They see that the user, like. I mean, like among the, like in the last few months, like how many hours or how many days they have used in out of the country. So they will know that, okay, this has been purchased out of this, jurisdiction, but they are keep on using it in that country. So definitely they come back saying that either they block it or they add a premium to that or additional amount to that. Tell that you need to pay this, otherwise the service will get unsubscribed or something like that. So it's there actually for some softwares already they are doing that.
Can we actually use, but we can use VPN to circumvent it, right?
Yeah, then like as he said, this type of support, local support, if it is not there, if that is going to affect, definitely, I mean, like, but then there are software companies keep a track on that, to see that whether the product has been, like for example, like Netflix and stuff like that, Amazon Prime and all. I've seen that. For example, when you buy that particular product in especially when I'm comparing in the Middle East, people buy it from Indian package, and they come here and use it, but after a certain time they are not able to use it, it get blocked or stuff like that. So this type of things are there already implemented, but somewhere like as Paddy said, like people are using VPN also to bypass this issues.
Yeah,
but some
another thing too.
yeah, you can't 100% control it, but definitely, yeah, as and when the technology improves, definitely there will be an end to it.
Yeah. Another thing to think about too is like local user behavior, right? So software gets used differently in Indonesia versus Malaysia versus Singapore, right? So what you can do is with each different software, show different types of features that might be specific to those local markets in order for it to not cross borders. So essentially an Indonesian version or Malaysian version may not be as hyped up, as solid as a Singaporean version. So the Singaporean version, a lot of companies are there, they're using it for a lot of functionality. Maybe in a particular market, have an incredibly simplified version. So a Singaporean company doesn't really see any value in buying an Indonesian version of the same software or a Malaysian version because it's not going to serve their purposes. I mean, so that's kind of the whole point of a digital service, right? A digital product, that it's giving exactly what you really need or some version of what you really need versus like, hey, you know what? It's cheaper, but it's not doing what I needed to. Then you're just basically wasting money at that point, right?
Yes.
So that's how I would do it based upon a non-technological methodology for going into different markets.
And another way you can
interesting.
Maybe
Yeah,
simple
go ahead.
users definitely avoid, like use maybe still use this type of products, but definitely companies or corporates definitely they will not they will try to avoid this type of risk because data is involved, and it can create a lot of issues for them.
Yeah.
And
There is, you're saying?
Yeah, another way you should look at it is what's your channel strategy, omni-channel strategy. I mean, so let's say it's software, you can sell it on your digital channel at a fixed price for the world, at the highest price possible. But places like, say, third world countries can't afford it. You work with your local partners there, local channel distributors, and say, okay, we offer you this price business volume license or local or some educational discounts for your market only. That way you can differentiate between where you're selling, using your channels as the gateway or the gatekeeper to prevent your product from being crossed over from different markets itself.
Okay, that's interesting. So let's say, guys, we were talking about digital products. So let's say, for example, mine is a physical product now. Okay. Again, I use Singapore as an example. So now I want to sell this particular product overseas. Okay. Question here. Should I or should I not respect? I know the answer should be yes. But then again, I'm a startup, I got no money. So I probably high pride, high ego, but I'm okay to circumvent the legal. Okay. How do I actually enter into a market with a pricing strategy, okay, that works well in Singapore market, but I'm not bringing it over to another market? Should I go in straight away, give deep discount, and then write it off as marketing, okay, just to gain some market shares? Okay, why? Because if I were to go in a physical products, I probably have to take care of the necessary tax. Maybe outgoing, incoming, warehousing, whatever tax that is probably going to be taken care of. So if I were to go into the market, let me repeat again, go into the market, slash the price, write it off as marketing instead of as sales. What kind of repercussion do you see from your experience? And this is one. Second is, you wish, hey, Paddy is a nice guy. You hope that Paddy can actually make it. How will you advise me to enhance on this method? That means we are talking about both sides of it. One is the negative side. The other one is you probably wish me better. How should we actually work around it? Yeah. So you guys don't have to agree, but please fight among yourself. Okay. Because this is a very typical questions, typical situations. A lot of startups, when they enter into a certain markets, they realize, hey, you know what? I want to go in that, I write it off as marketing. Then the other market, they said, I'm doing it well. Now I want to do more of it. So how do we strike a balance on that?
Playing a dangerous game here, Paddy. But but let's say I have a new product. Okay, I'm selling one in Singapore. It's manufactured maybe in Singapore manufacturing facility, whatever. And I want to bring it to, say, like China, for instance. Obviously, if I go into China, there'll be foreign tax involved, levied, and all the logistic costs, everything. But I really want to go into the market. I really want to see the market. So I have no choice. I'll eat up the whatever marketing expenditure we need to do to gain some brand awareness. But that cannot be your only strategy. Then you look at what's your cost of goods, COGS. To go into that market you're going to enter, look for a local partner who maybe can manufacture the same product, physical product, at a cheaper cost, or support a product with a lower overhead. Make sure that your cost structure is decreasing to a point whereby it's not only sustainable, but making you money in that particular market. That's the only way you can go about fighting it. Otherwise, in the long run, you're just going to kill yourself by just sucking up the marketing costs in long term.
I have a slightly different but similar thought process. If you go into a new market, right, and you're saying you're cutting the costs, you're saying it's a marketing cost, what happens is that the market begins to go, what is the value of this? It's super cheap, yes, cheap is good in certain situations, but it's really not serving my purposes. Or they'll view it as crappy things coming from overseas. They're trying to come into the market. It's not going to be of good quality. So therefore, what happens is they just completely disregard it at that point. You're absorbing the marketing as a marketing cost, but in reality, what you're doing is you're killing yourself with the value proposition for your product. And what ends up happening is that you're going to have a failure for market entry. You see it a lot here in the US, especially in the New York market, because like a lot of startups come here. Like, I'm not even joking. Like in Manhattan, we'll find a lot of companies are going, hey, we're selling this super cheap. And then people are like, that's garbage. Like, we don't really see a value for buying it. So then they don't even buy it at a lower cost at that point in time. What I would say is talk with a person or talk with organizations that already have experience with it before you launch into the market. I understand that there's ego involved with a lot of startup entrepreneurs that think they know everything, but sometimes actually use an expert that has an understanding of how to be able to get into that market, and then say like, look, I can, somehow negotiate in some type of way that your initial cost, maybe can you take a discount, but we'll give you a portion of the sale, of each sale that happens, which motivates them at that point. Because having a local person that understands the market here is going to be far more valuable, and it will actually return the value of the investment over the long period of time. Because another thing too is that you're going to have import costs, you're going to have all the things, and you can't get back that money. You're going to also end up like basically throwing things in the trash because, you know, companies are not going to buy because of the low perceived value. So you really have to think about if it's worth it or not to absorb it in your marketing costs per se, to try to get into the market at that point. But on the other side, if you want to be able to increase in other markets, what you can do is find a local partner like Darius was talking about, and looking at your channels. How do you sell? Do you take a look at things like ISVs, you know, taking a look at, you know, independent software vendors, take a look at how your business model is, and also think about how you deliver to your local market, and see if you can be able to get a partner in that particular market that can service customers as well as help you more with the go-to-market strategy as well. So, you know, those are some thoughts right now.
Right.
Hasan, do you agree with what both of them said?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree to that. And like maybe to add to that, you know, like definitely if it is for a long run, you know, like finding a local manufacturing partner definitely help, you know, to bring down the cost, you know, when you are launching in a new market. And there are certain products actually when it is selling on the market, definitely, you know, like, you know, if there are existing brands or existing products already selling in that particular market on a higher price, definitely people call it as a gray market, you know, product. So, you know, the local support and stuff like that, you know, people are not getting. So definitely there is an investment, big investment actually for a product to bring into a new market, to have a technical support, all those things to be provided. So definitely it is a, yeah, as you said, it is actually a part of the marketing product, and, you know, it is a new country for a product to, you know, to launch into that country. Definitely, you know, like for a long run, finding out a local, you know, manufacturing partner only, you know, helps them to be competitive in the market. Otherwise, for after certain time, you know, like even if you sell cheap, you know, like you will not have, you know, repeated customers, you know, coming and, you know, buying the product. So that's what.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Definitely not an easy question to answer. Okay, now we have hit 8:45. Please feel free, you know, participants, or, you know, please feel free to ask questions. You can always type it out into the chat group. I did receive a few. I think we have some participants that are quite shy. They sort of message me directly rather than put it into the group. So I also saw a few that came in. So maybe I will kickstart one of the questions that was sent to me earlier. So one of the questions was how sensitive should we be, you know, to the demands of price changes? Okay, so I believe what this person is trying to ask is that today I may be selling at $1. How sensitive should I be? Because you know what, it can be demand is not there or demand is too high. Example, I assume sometimes when demands are higher, doesn't mean that you decrease the price. In fact, there are actually companies who actually increases their price, you know, to come on the demands, because they may know that in terms of the inventory, I may not have that much inventory, and you may probably create shortage. Yeah, so this is a question I think is open to the floor. Speakers.
It sounds as though you're selling umbrellas in the rainy season. You know, it's rainy season, you just sell it more expensive. I mean, obviously, we do not want to leave money on the table when it comes to demand. Demand increases, like during COVID period, when toilet paper was selling at a premium, running out of toilet paper in NTUC, people were like, you know, buying it at ridiculous prices and stuff like this. So how sensitive should a startup be to pricing demands? I would say very much so. Try not to leave money on the table, but at the same time, understand a little bit more of what you're adding on top of the price increase. Customers can be very, how should I put it, petty in that sense. You can screw them over once or twice, but in the long run, if they see you as a money-grabbing brand, you may have a problem in the future moving forwards when you launch new products itself. So I would say that if you want to increase the price, sure, but make sure you add a little bit more value to it. or bundle it somehow to make sure that you are not just gorging, or the customer don't feel as though you're just gorging them.
Yeah, you have to be very careful about the idea of price gouging. So, you know, when you do, I mean, like Derek was talking about the pricing of umbrellas during rainy season, you have to be extremely sensitive to customers essentially taking a look at something and going, oh my God, they've increased the price so high at this point in time. Because what will happen is that you will not only lose new customers, you'll lose customers that you already have in reality. So there's a lot of price sensitivity that you need to take into consideration. And another thing too is that you also don't want it to be seen as like, you know what, we're greedy. We don't really give a crap about our customers. And so therefore we're just going to raise the price, you know, over and over again. And then what happens is that customers look at alternatives at that point. They start taking a look at, hey, you know what, this doesn't have as much functionality. This doesn't have enough. We don't really care. The basic stuff, we're just going to like, we'll just go with a competitor because they're a lower price at that point. So you have to be incredibly sensitive about how it works.
So let's say, for example, this is my own experience. So let's say I'm already on one mobile carrier, okay? Now they pop a message out to everybody, say, hey, you know what? For users who are already on the 4G, we will upgrade you to 5G. You know, at no cost, no price increase and everything. But you probably found out that, hey, you know what? The data is supposed to be 100 gigabyte. They probably reduce it to maybe half of it. Okay, so
Right.
that itself is considered as an upgrade because you are jumping from 4G to 5G. But the data that you were supposed to have, it got cut half. So, but the pricing strategy itself is to the consumer, they were like, okay, I actually not adding all. I'm not adding anything to pay anything, but also I'm not paying anything more or less. But at the same time, I got higher speed. So in this kind, what do you see? Do you see this as a good pricing strategy, or do you think that can be done, commonly?
I tell you, if I were you, I feel cheated. Because you're halving my data allocation and without consulting me whether I want a faster speed or not. I mean, what if I don't want faster speed? What if I want more data because I am a hotspot user or I use multiple devices? So I would think this is a very dangerous game your telco is playing because essentially they didn't give the customers a choice. Always give them a choice. Even if you're talking about a minority group which prefer more data versus higher speeds, but you cannot give the impression that they are being forced into a situation. So for me, personally, I feel that they should have done it a bit better by giving the customers a choice. Maybe it's a simple matter of going to an app and clicking, do you want to upgrade to higher speed at half the data allocation? Or do you want to remain at 4G with your current data allocation without a change in price? That would be a simple matter for them as well.
Tasat, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I'm like, and I have seen that actually companies take an advantage, on those things, like when, especially in the market, where they have, I mean, super control on that particular, product or segment, definitely, they take some advantages on that, changing understanding the customer and, their usage and based on that. So it is there actually. I mean, like somewhere, like people actually make use of that. Definitely. I mean, companies do that. Revising the pricing and maybe additional thing, and they say that okay, if you add this particular feature you have to add like an extra charge to that. So it's commonly used actually tactics by companies.
Yeah, I would say you have to do it very carefully, and the reason why is that if a competitor comes into the market and they have a much better pricing strategy or a better price point, and they're not really kind of going, hey, you know what, we're going to upgrade you, but in reality we're having your data. What happens is that customers will then begin to kind of migrate in masses. They'll start abandoning that particular company, those particular set of products, to go find a cheaper competitor at that point, even if it doesn't have as good service, but the core product is going to be cheaper. So you have to be incredibly careful about how you present that or upgrade people without their permission, because what they'll do is that they'll abandon you and find a better alternative, even if it's not good service.
Okay, thanks. That's a great answer. That's a great answer. We have a question from the audience. How do I, or as a startup founder entering into a market, effectively communicate the value of my product to justify its pricing?
Wow.
Anybody want to take the questions? That's a good question.
Indeed. That depends entirely on what's your go-to-market strategy, because you cannot just communicate the value of one value to every customer. Every one of your customer segments, or what I call ideal customer profiles, have different needs and different wants. You would definitely need to identify, number one, who are your big tier 1 customers are. Who are tier 2 customers? Who are tier 3 customers? What are their pain points? How does your product relate to their pain points? And then address each of them as individual groups, individual profiles. And you do not justify your pricing. I think you shouldn't be shy or ashamed of what you're charging your customers, because after all, that's the price you are paying for what business you run. What you should be looking at is, what is the value I'm offering my customers, which will solve their problems and save them costs or increase their margins. Because at the end of the day, that's what they're looking at. They're not going to look at, say, oh, what is my vendor's cost of goods and how am I going to, and is their pricing justified? No. They say, if I'm using vendor A versus vendor B, how is vendor A going to increase my margins? Or how is vendor A going to decrease my costs? That is what you're looking at, not exactly on how to justify your pricing.
Right.
Yeah, I feel that, nowhere actually, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say quickly that basically take a look at, adding to the ideal of ICP, the ideal customer profile, which is a lot in marketing. This is where you invest a lot in your marketing. This is where you do investigations about how to do your value proposition for, whatever set of products that you have. Because what happens is that when you're selling, you're selling to a problem, right? You're selling to a particular problem, a particular set of, customers. Those are the things that are really important when you're communicating the value of pricing, right? So this is very careful, and you're going to have to do a lot of testing. We do this idea of A/B testing. How do you initially do this versus is it going to work? Is it not going to work? So this is where you allow some time and some research to be able to kind of find out where the right pricing point is going to be. But always don't dilute your product. Present it as this is a valuable product at this price point, usually at a higher price point, because like earlier, Darius says, once you set it low, you can't go up.
Yeah, I feel
that's quite interesting. It so happened that there's another question that just posted from one of the audience here. But let's go back to Pasat first before we jump back to Nancy. Pasat, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add to that, and I don't think we have to justify, or any seller has to justify their pricing. I mean, to outsider, actually the pricing what they have to justify is within themselves, and it is always the value, because customer always as a customer, they definitely wanted to have a good deal, and in all these things actually a mental satisfaction, because it doesn't have any sort of parameter. Because when I feel that when I do some bargaining, or when I do some sort of request to get a discount, and all, when I feel that okay, I'm happy that I got enough discount, that actually make me a satisfied customer on that particular product, in terms of the price. So it's always for the seller to understand whether their pricing is rightly being done. So for that matter, definitely, they have to see that what all cost is there, and what all, to see a market research, or the competitors market pricing, what they have done, and based on that, the seller has all the right to sell at the rate what they want.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so now jumping back to Nancy. So Nancy, there's actually a question that's sent by an audience. Okay, so let me just read it. I do not want to sell to a certain groups of customers, as it may dilute my brands. Will increase selling higher works? I could guess increase selling, probably either selling price. I could assume that it should be the selling price. Nancy, what do you think?
So in the go-to-market strategy world, or the marketing world, we call this the Louis Vuitton model, right? So, you know, we call it the Louis Vuitton model. And the reason why is that luxury brands will price their goods very high and will never give a discount. And the reason why is that it gives illusion of not selling to a certain subset of customers, which is exactly what we're talking about in this particular question, right? So you set it at a certain price point so that it doesn't dilute the brand, because you want a certain set of customers, whether it's a physical product or whether it is a digital product, to have a perceived value to it, right? So you can do that, but you have to be incredibly careful about this, especially if you're not an established brand. If you are an established brand and you already have customers that you're like currently working with, then you can certainly, because you've already basically gotten a certain amount of customer acquisition at that point. But you have to be very, very careful if you are a brand new company, because people don't know you. They have absolutely no idea about how all of this works. What I would do is really take a look at your branding strategy at this point. You know, what is your brand? Who are you selling to? What are the types of products that you're selling to as well? Because pricing will then become an extension of your brand, right? Your brand, high end, you have quality. A lot of people see that you're putting a lot of money into R&D, a lot of money into support. So what you are putting into your branding strategy, which is then also important in your go-to-market strategy, will also help with your pricing point. If it's basically just based upon your product, people could care less. What they're going to do is that they're going to buy based upon price point, which is what you kind of don't want to have with those certain groups that you're talking about, is that you don't want to have. So branding is going to be incredibly important as you do your go-to-market strategy, especially in particular markets. So you better justify that higher price at that point. You better have some reason, whether it's perception of value or the functionality of what you're selling at that point, or whatever value that it brings if it's a physical product.
Yeah, I think the Louis Vuitton one is the most interesting. It's every time I walk past, I mean, I can't afford. Okay, so every time I walk past, you can see that the stores is usually empty, but the queues are always very long. Then I was like, come on. Okay, so there's another actually there are a couple of more questions. I know we're coming up to 9 o'clock already. This question is actually to Pasha. I said, should I sell in US dollar and then convert to local pricing, or the other way around? That's a very interesting question.
Yeah, if your product is actually like manufactured inside the country and you're selling to the local market, definitely you may have to price it at the same local pricing only. You can't change it to the US dollar. But if you are actually selling to an international customer, or maybe outside the country, you are selling it to, I mean, like a certain customer in a different countries, definitely you can maintain your currency as US dollar, and so that it is not going to affect your markup because of the exchanges. The customer, definitely the outside can come, I mean, the customer from situated in the other outside the country definitely will make the remittance in US dollar. So that always helps. So maintaining a US dollar I mean pricing for an international customer, it is always good, but for a local product you may have to be on a local pricing.
So let's say, I mean, this question is for Pasha and Darius and also Nancy. So okay, this is something very common. I'm a big fan of all these Kickstarter projects. Yeah, I spend a lot of money on all this nonsense. Okay, so and it's quite common, especially now. I think this is probably, and Darius is probably on your turf also. We've been seeing a lot of China companies that actually registered themselves in US to give the perception that this is actually a US company. Delaware, I think Nancy is already knocking ahead. And then they put it into platforms like Kickstarter, and then they position and say, hey, I'm actually a US company. But actually, we know that they are actually not, because their English is terrible. They reply to it in Google Translate, that kind of stuff. I mean, nothing against them. But that gives some perceptions that this is actually a US-based company. But we know very well that the manufacturing is probably coming from China. But let's say, for example, if you happen to be a backer from Dubai or in the Middle East, so you are backing it in terms of your local currency, or maybe even in US dollar. Okay. Personally, I find that this pricing strategy is pretty interesting, because it doesn't matter where is it being manufactured, but it just gives you the perception that this is actually from US. Because it doesn't mean that things that are produced in China has to be cheap, or things that produced in US has to be expensive. So pertaining to the answer that you just give, Pasar, I do agree. But in situation like this, it becomes a norm for people to pay in US dollar. So now, let's say we were to take this concept, okay? I actually manufacture in China. I'm selling to international market. Naturally, I'm using USD because that's the benchmark. But now with a lot of countries not using US dollar as the benchmark, some of them actually try to use on their own for whatever political reasons. Okay, so if that is the case, my pricing will probably out of the window, because if I'm buying in or manufacturing in US dollar, and for whatever reasons, I have to sell it and I have to localize it in the local currency, I will probably face a lot of risk. Why? Somebody could have already ordered, maybe sign a 6 months or 12 months of supply, and then they lock onto the price. Okay, so how should I work around it? I mean, I know there's no right or wrong answer, but I'm just curious. This is a genuine question from myself. How should I circumvent it in the case of this?
Actually, a company based in US nowadays, you see that like all multinational companies or big companies, their manufacturing units are in China or Vietnam and stuff like that. So definitely they say that they have certain standards, so they actually go through that standard checking everything, quality check and all, at par to the US standard. So but the manufacturing is done in Chinese market or in Indian market, whatever market. So it is a practice nowadays to bring the cost down for any manufacturer. Otherwise, to have a manufacturing unit in such type of countries, definitely the cost will go up. So that is one of the point what like big companies say on the product, what they have. And the second phase of your question, I didn't understand. What is that? You're trying to sell it on a local market, means which market you mean? Like the buyer's market uh, or the Chinese market where the product is manufactured?
It can be something like, in the first place, it's probably manufactured in China, but you somehow masquerade it up as I'm actually from US. Therefore, I can actually sell higher. I mean, I'm not saying Darius smiling. So Darius, you want to take a step on this?
I mean, this is a very classic case of using your currency to elevate your brand, making people think that you're from a certain country or region, whereas you're not. It's a very common practice. But if you want to go in that direction, be very careful on how you deal with the FX risk, because like Paddy mentioned, what if you have a 6 month supply or you order, a long-term contract, you're running the type of FX risk. But legitimately as a business, I wouldn't advise it. What I would probably think about is, number one, where is your headquarters incorporated? If it's Singapore, then it's Singapore dollars. If it's US, it's US dollars. Use that as your base currency. Look at where you're selling to and how you're selling to, what channel you're selling to. If you're selling to India and you have a local bank account there which you can collect in local currency, by all means go and sell in rupiah, or sell in India currency, or rupees. If you, on the other hand, don't have a presence there, you cannot collect in local currency, then you need to use the USD or euros to collect your money, because it depends on who is collecting agency. So I think this is more an operational question than a pricing question. But again,
there are a lot of other things, because tax will apply when you collect the money like in such countries to save on this thing. So you need to take care of all these things, otherwise
yeah. There's actually a little twist in this, which people don't realize. And so, for instance, there have been Chinese manufacturers that have been going to Italy, to Milan, because of perceived value of Italian fashion. But the funny thing is that all of their employees are Chinese. They're paying Chinese wages, but they're living in Europe. They're living in Italy. This was actually a big, huge outcry in Italy and France, because a lot of Chinese companies were setting up, in their minds, what they called sweatshops, with local Chinese labor being brought into the country in order to be able to manufacture with the label made in Italy or made in France. And so that became a big issue. But the pricing strategy with this, you've got to be incredibly careful, because the thing is that your customers in that market will have a certain value added, like perceived based upon where the country of manufacture is. Like we were just talking about, made in Italy, made in France, made in USA. They have a perceived value of what the quality of the product is, even though they may be a Chinese manufacturer or an Indian manufacturer, whoever. So you have to be incredibly careful that when you're going into like a market and you're portraying that you're an American company, a Singaporean company, company based in Dubai or whatever, that it meets or exceeds the manufacturing standards for that particular market. And then your pricing can go according to that because the perceived value of the manufacturing or the perceived value of the product is in accordance with the local market. So those are the things that you have to be incredibly careful with.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. Okay, so apparently we sort of have to stop soon. There's actually one question. That's for Darius. What products do you represent? I mean, yeah.
I'm a business consultant, so it depends on what my clients are selling. But I do hardware, software, as well as financial technology, so fintechs as well. So yeah, if you have problems or you need some help with go-to-market, just drop me a ping.
But you guys, you can actually take a screenshot, because there may be thousands of Darius out there. So you want to match his face with his name. Nancy, so far I only know one Nancy with this name. So yeah, you can also take a screenshot. Passat, this is my buddy for 10, 20 years. So yeah, so feel free to reach out to any of them, for advisories and consultations and everything. They are actually experts that sit in Startup Storm. The invitation that we send it out. So if you have any questions, yeah, please feel free to book them, make a reservations and talk to them and stuff like that. Then if there's no more other questions, I think we should probably wrap up. But before we finish, maybe I'd like to invite, Darius, Passat or Nancy to probably give some advice, some word of advice in terms of the pricing. We can always start with the lady. We start with the ladies first. We start with the lady, we end with the lady also. Come, Nancy. or the girl.
So thanks. So what I would say with pricing is really think about your product and think about how many competitors that you have in the market. For me, I usually work with emerging technologies, things that are fairly new to the market or things that are maybe high value at that point. But it's really be price sensitive to who your competitors are and really also what you value, what the value proposition of the product is, because that is really where you can set your pricing. Taking a look at your competitors, taking a look at what's in the industry, but also taking a look at your customers and what the customers may potentially pay for your product. Because like the question was before about like not having a certain type of customer, that pricing strategy will help you to kind of gravitate and get more to the customer base that you're taking a look at. Invest in your marketing, invest in your go-to-market strategy. I think maybe Darius would probably agree with me, because this is extremely important about how you approach things, because first time to market, you can't do it again. I mean, it's a one-time only thing, guys. So hopefully you can do it right for the first time, but also be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fail and allow yourself to kind of reiterate things. Look, Patty's like, yeah. So, I mean, all of us as entrepreneurs here, we failed, I'm sure, multiple times, but don't be afraid to fail and understand that you can reposition things and you can always reintroduce things.
Rightly said.
Okay, second girl, Passat.
Yeah, she actually have covered all the points, like pricing definitely, but actually pricing is not everything, but it also matters. That's all, because you need to always pricing is not only the reason for selling. Definitely your product actually has to stand out of the market. The value, like the quality of the product, everything has to be definitely above the market, so that your pricing will definitely automatically will justify. And you can always have a premium for such type of products. If your product has a high value in terms of the usage and stuff like that, definitely you can increase the price. There is no comparison, because there are many products like that which has no comparison with the market standard pricing. Their price must be very high, but people still use that because of the product quality and the reliability on the product. So it is like that. So pricing always, and then even if you see like, the brand names, the luxury brands, what is there, the cost of, manufacturing, it definitely, is like any other product, but it is not that. They ensure that, their customer get the best out of it. So they try to provide the best product, but then they keep a very high premium on that. So there is actually no comparison actually, but you need to take care of the cost and everything, but there is no comparison as such. If you make the product at the cost of 50, doesn't mean that you can't sell at $500. There are some products, you could definitely can have multiple times profit, and you can definitely sell. These are all actually based on your confidence on your product, how you place it in the market. So that's all. So happy selling, and all the best to all of the guys who are there.
Thank you very much. Darius, you want to wrap up?
Yep, sure. I have two pieces of advice for you. For those who are startups who have very innovative products and don't know how to price their products because there's nothing in the market which is even close, never do cost up or markups, because this makes sense. Look at what the use cases, what problem you're solving for a customer, how much money you're either making them or saving them, and then that is the benchmark in which you should charge to price your products itself. So always do your research and make sure you're not undercharging or overcharging for the use case you're solving. The second one is pricing strategy, like all strategies, should evolve. Don't be married to a certain strategy the entire life cycle of your company. You're just going to suffer, and you're going to realize that eventually you get very bad customers as the company gets bigger and bigger as you scale up. I think Paddy can attest to that as well. Make sure that pricing strategy fits at which stage your company is at. Are you growing? Are you maintaining or stabilizing? Are you fighting for the big customers, or are you fighting for a long tail? Make sure your pricing strategy suits what you need. And above all, getting your sales team to agree to certain pricing changes and pricing strategy changes is probably the biggest challenge you have in getting it adopted, because there will always be resistance, especially if you hit the bottom line. So be aware that wherever you evolve, make sure your team is on board with what you're evolving and you don't encounter any unnecessary internal resistance as well.
Yeah, because buyers always want to buy low, seller always want to sell high.
Yep.
So there's always a sort of balance. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, especially to the three speakers, Darius, Prasad, and also Nancy. Thank you for taking the time. And also to every one of you. So from here, I shall end the whole panel discussions. For anyone who is interested to know more, please drop by into startupstorm.asia, and you can find the profile and details of the three speakers down here. Okay, so thank you very much, and have a pleasant morning or evening. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paddy. Thanks, Nancy.
Have a nice
Thanks,
weekend.
Prasad.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.